Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We've got another deep dive for you today that I think you're really going to enjoy.
Yeah, this one is particularly exciting and
Yeah.
really interesting.
Especially, I think, for anyone out there who's interested in the future of energy in India.
Absolutely.
And maybe even,
Especially relevant for those
yeah,
UPSC aspirants out there
absolutely.
who, are going to need to be on top of this stuff.
Yeah, this is going to be especially relevant for the mains exams, but could even pop up
Oh, yeah,
in
definitely.
some of the prelims, too. So
For sure.
this is something that we're hearing more and more about, and I think it's going to be increasingly important going forward, and that is gravity energy storage.
Gravity energy storage. That's right.
So maybe you've heard about this, or maybe this is the first time you're hearing about it,
Right.
but it's basically a way to store energy using, well, gravity.
That's exactly right. And, when you think about it, it's actually a pretty simple concept.
Yeah, surprisingly simple.
Yeah.
Uh,
When you really think about it.
yeah, we're all familiar with gravity.
Mm-hmm.
It's what keeps us on the ground. It's what makes things fall.
Exactly.
And so the idea of using it to store energy
Yeah.
is kind of like, well,
Seems obvious.
right,
Yeah. Why haven't we been doing this all along?
right. Why didn't we think of this before?
So how does it work?
Okay, so in the most basic terms, um, gravity energy storage is all about using excess energy to lift something heavy.
Okay.
And then when you need that energy back, you basically let the object fall, and that falling motion turns a generator, which produces electricity.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, we're talking about like lifting a really heavy weight or something like that.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Okay.
In reality, these systems are often much more complex,
Right.
but the basic principle is the same.
Got it.
You're using energy to move a mass against gravity, and then you harness the energy released when that mass falls back down.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, and it's a very elegant solution in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about this is that it's so different from the way we typically think about energy storage.
Absolutely.
We usually think about batteries.
Right, chemical battery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
With all those complex chemical reactions and,
Mm-hmm.
potential environmental concerns.
And limited lifespans and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with gravity energy storage, it's just pure physics.
Yeah, just gravity doing its thing.
It's like we're hacking the laws of nature.
In a way. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, I guess the next question is, how do we actually build one of these things? Like, what does a gravity energy storage system actually look like in the real world?
So there are actually a few different designs out there, but one of the most common ones uses a large cylinder filled with a fluid, and inside that cylinder is a really heavy piston.
Okay.
When you have excess energy, say from a solar or wind farm, you use that energy to pump the fluid into the cylinder, which pushes the piston upwards against gravity.
Okay.
So now you've stored that energy as potential energy in the lifted piston. And then when you need electricity, you just release the fluid and the piston falls back down, driving a generator.
Wow. So it's like a giant hydraulic pump.
Pretty much.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. And I imagine that these systems could be built on a pretty large scale.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. You can scale them up or down depending on your needs.
Wow, that's really exciting. So, I'm starting to see how this could be a real game changer for the energy sector. But what are some of the advantages of gravity energy storage over other types of energy storage?
Well, for one thing, they're incredibly durable.
Okay.
There are not that many moving parts in a gravity energy storage system, and the components that are moving are very robust, so they can last for decades with minimal maintenance.
So we're talking about like a lifespan of maybe 50 years or even longer.
Yeah, potentially even longer.
Wow, that's much longer than most batteries.
Right, and that makes them a very attractive option for long-term energy storage.
Absolutely.
Um,
And what about the environmental impact?
That's another big advantage.
Um,
Unlike batteries, gravity energy storage systems don't rely on any harmful chemical reactions, so there's no risk of toxic waste or emissions.
That's great. And I'm guessing they're also pretty safe, right?
Yeah, they're generally considered to be very safe. There's no risk of fire or explosion like you might have with some battery technologies.
That's fantastic. So we've got durability, we've got environmental friendliness, we've got safety. This is starting to sound like the perfect energy storage solution.
Well, it's certainly got a lot going for it.
So for our listeners out there who are prepping for the UPSC exams, how does all of this tie into India's energy goals? And what are some of the key takeaways that they should be aware of?
Okay, so as you know, India has set some very ambitious targets for renewable energy.
Right, 500 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030.
Exactly, and that's a huge goal.
Yeah,
And to achieve that goal, we're going to need to find ways to store all that renewable energy because solar and wind power are intermittent.
right. They're not always available when we need them.
Exactly. So we need a way to store that energy when it's plentiful and then release it when the sun isn't shining or the wind isn't blowing.
Right, and that's where gravity energy storage comes in.
Exactly. Gravity energy storage could be a key enabler for India's renewable energy transition.
Okay, so let's connect the dots for our listeners. How would this actually work in practice?
So imagine you have a large solar farm in Rajasthan.
Okay,
During the day, when the sun is shining, these solar panels are generating tons of electricity, more than the grid might need at that particular moment.
right.
So instead of wasting that excess energy, you could use it to power a gravity energy storage system,
Okay,
lifting those heavy weights or pumping that fluid into the cylinder.
got it. So we're storing the sun's energy as potential energy.
Precisely. And then later in the day, when the sun starts to set and demand for electricity peaks, you can release that stored energy back into the grid, smoothing out the supply and demand curve.
Ah, so it acts like a giant battery, helping to stabilize the grid and make renewable energy more reliable.
Exactly. And that's a huge deal because grid stability is absolutely essential for a modern economy.
Absolutely. And I imagine that this could also have a significant impact on reducing our reliance on fossil fuels.
Oh, absolutely. If we can effectively store renewable energy, then we don't need to rely on coal and natural gas power plants to meet our energy needs.
And that would be a huge win for the environment.
Absolutely reduced emissions, cleaner air, healthier planet.
This is all starting to sound very promising.
It is. There's a lot of potential here.
So for our UPSC aspirants out there, I think it's safe to say that gravity energy storage is a topic worth paying attention to.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's a hot topic in the energy sector, and it's likely to become even more important in the years to come.
All right, so if you're interested in learning more about gravity energy storage, there are tons of resources available online. You can also check out the UPSC syllabus for specific topics related to energy and sustainability.
And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel for more deep dives on topics that matter.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you in the next episode.